in detail some of the issues as we deal with this media briefing, has communicated that the various activities are underway to rebuild trust and public confidence, which include the following amongst others. Under Human Resource Management and Development, the branch has been tasked to commence with the process of analyzing the job profiles against CVs of the people who are holding the positions in IDAC. This analysis of all 146 staff members in IDAC will be completed by the 14th of August 2026. All employees in IDAC will undergo lifestyle audit as a matter of urgency. A skilled, experienced investigator is being appointed by the SIU to be seconded to the NPA to conduct a full case audit on all cases. In the interim, the NPS is finalizing the consideration of the CID cases enrollment. All Section 28, 1 and 13 authorization will be evaluated against mandate, intake criteria and referral mechanisms. There will be an evaluation of all cases currently on the court roll to ensure that people are correctly charged. NDPP will outline in detail as these are his areas of operation. A process to improve operational management of the Directorate is underway, which include a review of standard operating procedure and related issues. IDAC will ensure that they build a sustainable in-house capacity to deal with digital forensic matters. I have, as the Minister, placed Mr. Dylan Perumal on suspension from his position as the Chief Investigator of South Africa's Investigative Directorate against corruption, pending disciplinary action and disciplinary processes. And the NDPP, in terms of his powers, also in terms of authority, you would understand that there are delegations at which level you deal with what, has started a disciplinary process for employees within the purview of his purview who have been found wanting at IDAC, and that has commenced. Mr. Brian Badiaki and Mr. Suleiman Buluchan have already been suspended pending disciplinary proceedings against them. Regarding the wrong perception that has been created in the public domain that IDAC is dominated by prosecutors and investigators of Indian origin, I would like to set the record straight and dispel this perception. IDAC's demographic profile with regards to prosecutors and investigators are as follows. The breakdown of investigators are 81.2% are Africans, which is a total of 56 of them. 7.3% are colors, which is 5. 10.1% are Indians, which is 7. 1.5%, which is 1%, which is calculated at 1. 1.5 is white. The breakdown of prosecutors are 20 of them, which comprises 50% Africans, 7 who are Indian, which comprises 17.5%, and white, 13, which is 32.5%. It is clear from these statistics that the demographic composition is a reflective of the population demographics of the country. And let me make it clear that wrongdoing is wrongdoing. It should not be allowed to happen irregardless of who they are involved or who is involved and their race. Over and above these mechanisms that have been put in place, it has become evident that there is a need for a policy and legislative review. The review of the NPA Act that has already begun will be enhanced in the areas that I have also requested that they be paid attention to. And those areas are as follows. The term of office of directors for public prosecutions and the head of IDAC has to be reviewed. We believe that rather than being permanent as is currently in the case, these positions should have a limited and definite term of office. This will protect the institutions and protect the integrity of our organization. Strengthening checks and balances and accountability mechanisms within the NPA in its entirety to ensure that we minimize abuse of power or process, and this is being led by the NDPP. Elimination of conflict of interest. What has emerged is that prosecutors find themselves in a position where they have to make a decision on the arrest warrant against their own colleagues, which is a clear case of conflict of interest. And this area does require a legislative review, but also analysis of other jurisdictions. How do they deal with this issue? And this will ensure that we address the issues in terms of the challenges that are there, but also that will promote justice and fairness. Though NPA and IDAC, it is not a Chapter 9 institution. The National Prosecuting Authority is an important public body that supports democracy in South Africa. It is the only agency responsible for instituting criminal proceedings on behalf of the state across the country. It works to uphold the rule of law, ensure accountability, and fight crime. The fight against crime and corruption requires each element of the value chain of criminal justice system to be fully functional and effective. We all have the responsibility to protect and defend the NPA, including IDAC, so that we can strengthen our democracy and ensure its sustainability. As I conclude, I must remind South Africans that IDAC is an 18-month-old institution that has a huge opportunity of both growth and stability. As a minister, I believe that in the organization there are still men and women of integrity who have kept to their oath of office as both investigators and prosecutors, and they deserve our support. And we have articulated and echoed our sentiments in the support of the work that is being done by the Madlanga Commission, and have urged all our employees who may be called or who have been called to support the Commission by being open and transparent in the manner that they present their affidavits, but also their testimony. This will be in the good interest of our country and our institutions. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Minister. That is the statement that we have. I would now to ask the National Director of Public Prosecution to make the additions that the Minister was talking about before we get to question and answer. Advocate Mothibi.
Thank you, Mr. Khanyago. Let me acknowledge the Minister, Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development, Minister Kubayi, all the members of media and the colleagues. Just so that I can really pick up on what the Minister has said, in ensuring that we give appropriate attention to this agency, the Investigative Directorate Against Corruption. We have developed a focused reorganization or reset project. And that project, it's really going to be quite intense. And there's various work streams that we have developed. And the work streams, in brief, the Minister has alluded to really some of them. Of importance is really to ensure that the business processes of IDAC are well defined, in line with the legislation that governs the work of IDAC. We are going to focus on operations management to ensure that IDAC operations are efficient and effective as they should be in line with the legislation. We will review the processes, including any other template or a form that seeks to execute certain areas of the legislation. For example, you may have picked up that there is what's called a Section 27 referral. You may go and look at the NPA Act. It's really a mechanism where the public refers matters to IDAC. So we'll have to make sure that that process is well defined, but there's also other related processes. Once the matter is referred, how is it that is authorized for investigation? The standard operating procedures have to be reviewed to ensure that there's checks and balances that the minister has referred to, but also ensure that there's segregation of duties so that you don't have an individual who receives the Section 27 referral and is the same individual that goes on to authorize what is it that needs to be investigated. We're going to ensure that we strengthen training and awareness, service delivery inspections, policy review, and determine optimal workload ratios. The total staff at IDAC is about 212. There are vacancies, and that needs to be filled. And the work stream of human resources, we are going to make sure that we review the structure and the establishment and ensure that we determine the vacancies that are there and ensure that we fill all the skills that are required. Consider all the vacancies that are there, but also those that are filled. We are going to ensure that we go through the CVs and ensure that those who are occupying those roles are adequately qualified. Another important area, of course, is the audit of the cases that are in IDAC. So that audit will take a format that ensures that all the cases have been appropriately referred and appropriately authorized, and which ones are on the roll, are prosecutors well allocated to those cases, and so on. Just in brief, we'll also look at communication and branding. Minister mentioned the issue around lifestyle audits. I won't repeat on that. We'll also look at the finance management of the organization. We'll also look at the stakeholder management and partnerships. Security management is very, very important to ensure that the witnesses that are important for the cases that we run, and ensure that where there's a need to protect them, we'll do so, and also the investigators and prosecutors. Vetting of all those employees at IDAC, we'll have to make sure that all the vetting processes are done. The rest, of course, of the other focus areas are really quite operational. I have said to the team that we need to make sure that the people, processes, and systems of IDAC are attended to. The advantage, at least if I can say so myself, is that IDAC is not so dissimilar to the organization where I come from, the Special Investigating Unit. The value chain is similar. We just have to make sure that there's checks and balances so that there is no conflict of interest in the system. And the monitoring mechanism have to be put in place, regular reviews of cases by those who are responsible, and regular reporting of status of matters that are on hand. So it's going to be very important that the team at IDAC is focused. Of course, it's supported by the whole system at NPA and ultimately by the Department of Justice. I need to also, as I conclude, that the whistleblower protection also and witness protection, which I've alluded to. And of course, of importance is the governance the governance processes in the organization. So we are going to be driving this project such that everyone is on board. I have had the opportunity to meet all staff and address them around all of these initiatives, and they've been welcomed by the staff there. So, Minister, we can assure the public that we are going to work hard. We predict that this project will take about 6 months because we need to turn around that entity quite quickly in a demonstrable way that the public can see that there's really turnaround. We have taken account of what has been reported at the Madlanga Commission. There's actions that have been taken with immediate effect. Accountability is going to be the order of the day. If there are any instances where we really have to take consequence management, we will do so, and we've already started, as the Minister has alluded. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, NDPP. We are now going to get into questions and answers, and you know the drill, where you're coming from and what your question and who you're referring the question to. There are only 2 people, therefore it's not going to be a difficult one. Can we start in-house? 1, let's take about 3 questions. 2, 3. Let's start then. Can you raise your voice?
Good afternoon.
They can't hear you.
You can't hear me. Can
Try
I
another
change
mic.
the mic?
Sometimes this breaks a little bit.
Is this better?
Let's try.
Sinesipo from Business Day.
Okay.
Sinesipo from Business Day. Good afternoon, everyone. The NDPP has indicated that the process is going to take about 6 months. I just wanted to get clarity. Is there an independent law firm, or is this a process that is conducted by the NPA internally in terms of going through the cases of IDAC, analyzing, looking at the referrals and see if it actually fits within the mandate of IDAC? And also secondly, Minister, I just wanted to check if maybe I missed in your address, is there an acting head, or is the ministry considering appointing an acting head at IDAC, since right now there is no head? And also just lastly, it's a question that both the Minister and the NDPP could consider. Today at the Madlanga Commission, there was the evidence of State Prosecutor Drew Ramsamy that was heard, and she has provided evidence, further evidence of suggesting abuse of power by the former IDAC head, Andrea Johnson. Is this something that the Minister will be considering, or is this something that will also form part of the complaints that went to the IDAC judge, or it's something that the Minister and the NDPP going to be considering when they're reviewing these cases? And just lastly, if Ms. Ramsamy, there was a comment that you made to the Commission that she's going to go back to work, is the Ministry or the NDP considering some kind of protection towards her, because she has provided evidence against her colleagues? Thank you.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Criselda Lewis from SABC Television News. It seems I don't need a mic. All right. Good afternoon to everyone, Minister and NDPP as well. I'd like to add to my colleague's questions that she asked just a few moments ago with the IDAC State Advocate Ramsamy, who was on testifying at the Madlanga Commission today. Verbatim, what she basically said was that Advocate Johnson had launched an attack using IDAC against the suspended National Police Commissioner, Fani Masimula, and Khumalo as well. I know that you did touch on reviewing some of the cases We know there's also a concession that was made by Advocate Johnson that Mmamoloko perhaps should not have been lumped up with the others who are standing in court for the matter relating to the Medicare 24 SAPS contract. My second question relates to how soon can we see an interim head of IDAC? I'm sure you'd not want to, Minister, as well as the NDPP, allow the show has to go on, as they say. And there also seems to be a system of intimidation, or allegations at least, I should say, of intimidation and a workplace that is undesirable. How do you plan to deal with that, given the fact that such an important institution seems to be heavily have been compromised, allegedly, by what we've heard? Thank you.
Okay,
William Bogo from Newsroom Africa. Part of my questions have been taken care of about who will replace, or shall we say, how many people will replace Andrea Johnson, whether in fact you are going to, in the interim, or within the 6 months that the NDP spoke about, you considering perhaps tampering with the structure as well. And then perhaps, I suppose with the benefit of hindsight, were there reasons why there was no or there was no structure until, of course, the appointment of the judge? Was there a specific reason as to why the structure was left as it is, and of course subject to the apparent manipulation and people taking decisions that are outside of the purview of IDAC? And I'll stop there.
Okay.
I'm here.
Who's saying over here?
Molo.
Moloto.
Thank you so much. Moloto here from ENCA. I just have 3 quick questions. Minister, and also perhaps you, National Director of Public Prosecution. How is, because the underlying message you are giving us here is that one and all will be held accountable. How is Advocate Andrea Johnson going to be held accountable? Because she was at the pinnacle and she has now left the employ of IDAC. Is it fair to suggest that she is off the hook? The second question relates to, because IDAC is a directorate within the NPA, you, Minister, have political oversight over the NPA. How come none of you, perhaps institutionally, couldn't even see the cracks in this 18-month-old baby if measures were in place? Did you get to hear about this rot and dysfunction and all these things along with us as members of the public as they emerged from the Maganga Commission? Or at some point, perhaps you might have had a whistleblower who came and said, this and that are happening, and perhaps you were attending to those issues. Finally, on the issue of the audit of the cases, it seems the emphasis is on those that are before the courts now. What about those that have already been decided by the courts, if any? What will happen in that regard? Thank you.
Okay. Can we move to answers for now before we get to the next round?
Do the simple ones.
Okay, Minister.
Now, I was saying that I'll do the simple ones. Advocate Mothibi will do the difficult ones. For example, the ones by Senior Sipo. Let me just and I clap it with what others have asked about the acting head. We are in the process of doing that. We be cautious. The Act does allow for the minister to appoint on the recommendation of the NDPP an acting head. I've requested vetting in light of the difficulties and other issues that we are seeing, but we also are in the process of actually ensuring that the post is filled fully. So we're hoping hopefully we should be before the end of the week or by next week have an acting head in terms of the IDAC, but we just want to make sure that vetting is being done because just to make sure that everything is not going to come back. I think coming to the issue, and you'll deal with that, NDPP, the issues of the cases and all that. That's what I want to deal with the simple ones. So I've answered Criselda as well on the issues of the acting, and as well as Vuyo. The process normally, just even to explain to members of the public, with the acting, you take from the current employees within the organization. What we have broadly is within NPA broadly that we can take somebody. I do want to say I was uncomfortable at the moment until some of the work is being done to take anyone who is second command and after Advocate Johnson in IDAC. So the option was to take outside IDAC to find within the NPA in terms of the rules. It does allows you to note that when Advocate Chauke went on leave when he was placed on suspension and when he was going through, we took the DPP from Northern Cape to be able to act in Johannesburg. So we're looking at something like that, but we have to vet first and understand the individual that we are bringing so that we don't perpetuate the problems that we have while we're dealing with the whole organization as a whole. The issue of oversight, and I'll deal with this. Look, when, as I say, the organization coming to life is 18 months ago, but also when the judge was appointed, and then the regulations were pending. So for those sections of that, in terms of bringing it to life, was not done, and that's why we had to do those regulations. They were finalized this year, signed them off this year. Process of regulation is not an easy one like you do with also legislation. So you've got to be able to ensure that you do the legal opinions, you do the legal overview over it, but also you consult those who are relevant in terms of developing it. So it was only finalized at the beginning of this year, and then we finalized the issue of establishment because this is a new office, just to have a conversation on how this office is going to run, how we're going to fund it, and all those things. And that's what led to this. One would not have assumed that there would be these difficulties that we face because it's an organization that integrity should have been high. It's an organization that where these are officers of court whose oath of office must mean anything in terms of protecting the law and abiding by the law. But unfortunately, because as society, we do have people who actually, I can say, sometimes forget that they are officers of court, and therefore that's why we find ourselves here. We have, as we said previously, referred quite a number of cases. In terms of the regulations, when you look at them, the investigating judge, the oversight judge does not stop because a person has resigned. Because they've got to look at the matter, institution itself, look at the process, look at if there's other people involved and what would have been. So if a person, for example, like Advocate Johnson has left the employee, yes, and I said this, somebody was asking me, was it not? We didn't do any special arrangement. When a person resigns, there's nothing you can do. You can't force a person to remain in employment. That will be violating of the laws. But as well, when you take a person to DC, the ultimate price of an employee in DC is dismissal. So there's no another mechanism in terms of labor law. But if the person has violating if there's criminal activities that have been undertaken, then criminal procedures must follow. If the person has done other things, then other mechanisms must follow. So within the employment space, where it's an employer and employee relationship, that's where it ends. But accountability as an officer of court doesn't end there. You would note that some of the people have actually gone to LPC to report. The IDAC check is working. If they are found to be other things, then the procedures will follow. So we don't think that when a person resigns, that's the end of it. We do believe strongly on accountability, especially if the actions actually led to where we are. I do take them as serious. The fact that we have an organization that was nearly collapsed, and we are sitting here having to do this media briefing to protect an integrity of an organization that is so important, not only for this country, but also being looked at by global organization or global players. This is an organization that we are utilizing to respond to FATA, for example. This is an organization when we do, in terms of investment drives, it's amongst other organizations that we utilize its work to be able to say its credibility. So it's very important for us as a country and as this portfolio, but more broadly as JCPS. So that would be one of the issues. I think it answers what Vuyo and Mmamoloko have asked. The issue of whether we didn't see this over time, I can safely say as a minister, there were one or two things that were brought to my attention, but they were not with evidence. So you would have this to say, no, there's particular this complaint. And as you know, by the law, minister is limited to a particular, and especially on prosecutorial matters. So if it's a complaint about prosecution, to say, no, it's not been followed, the best thing minister can do is to call the NDPP and engage with the NDPP. And in that engagement gets reports. And then if the reports are answering into the point that they dismiss the issues with particular evidence, then you are able to put them aside. And I must say, I mean, this year, myself and NDPP have had about 2 conversations with Advocate Johnson on the basis of information that was arriving on my desk. And that was dismissed. We were given assurances that it's not the way you are thinking that it is. And I don't want to go into the detail because it will be like we are entering the space of the commission. But I can safely say the process that the minister has as oversight is through the NDPP, because one of the things that I always want to do is to protect the integrity and the independence of the NPA. So I have made it clear that I don't interact with anyone else, but I do with the NDPP. And then if the NDPP, if there is a meeting that I will need to have with anyone else below him, he has to be there. We do so. We have executive meetings that I would call, sit with them and go through the issues in terms of performance, in terms of the concerns that I have. And that's why you would have noted that last year I called for the lifestyle audit in NPA. That lifestyle audit call was on the basis of some of the concerns that we said. And I said to them, my concern is that I cannot defend you fully against the allegations if I don't have anything in writing that says you are clean. So you've got to give me the basis for me to defend you. And that's one of the things that I had requested. And we started that process. And we started to see it escalating with NDPP Mothibi. As he arrived, we agreed that because of his experience in SIU, therefore, he helps me to do that work. So that's one of the issues. Secondly, for example, there was a complaint about in IDAC about the access to the records of Zondo. We actually dealt with that as well. Called them into the team, cleared the matter, that's why the matter died. There was also another complaint about the people who are being appointed as Section 38. When I arrived in the portfolio, there was no policy around how we appoint Section 38. Then we agreed that we'll do the policy so that the appointments are within that context. So when matters come, you look at what the matter is, you do oversight, you get evidence, you will be assured or you will not be. Unless people give you evidence that counters what your team gives you, you would not be. Am I shocked to the level? I know South Africans even tell the president not to say that he's shocked. But yeah, it's actually a painful reality to sit and hear what is coming. I try my level best to focus on the work for now. I said to the team, I don't want to follow, but you'll get those clips that are sent to you on WhatsApp, and they are very painful, I can say. It's things that should not happen in an organization. And I think that's one of the things that we are saying with NDPP, that this is a lesson. We have to rebuild. And we have to protect this institution. It must never face what it has faced going forward. Thank you.
No, thank you, Minister. I'd like to just start off and pick up on what the Minister has indicated. There is a common thread around how we're going to hold, or how is the former head of IDAC going to be held accountable. And not just her, all those where there is evidence pointing to wrongdoing, they will be held to account. That is why you have seen, the immediate suspensions that has kicked in, those that we have referred to. And everyone where there's evidence pointing to wrongdoing, there will be consequence management. We are following on the Madlanga Commission, and we do get information that, amongst others, enables us to identify those that we need to act on. So the accountability spectrum, and the list may not be exhaustive. Right? We hold you accountable as an employee, right? And you know that Advocate Johnson has resigned. That obviates the question of holding her accountable as an employee. That would have required an inquiry and. But the resignation, as we always say, and we have said that even when we were at SIU, that those that are found wanting and those that have contributed to wrongdoing will be held to account even though they've resigned. Now, another aspect of the spectrum of accountability is that if there's evidence pointing to criminal action, and you may have followed on the Madlanga Commission, even Advocate Johnson herself indicating that, and that's why she has opted not to answer some of the questions, because there's investigations that are underway. So we will pursue those so that they're investigated appropriately, and they're investigated by SAPS. And when the investigations are complete, we will make sure that the prosecutorial decisions are taken. And for matters of this nature, because they emanate from Madlanga, we've got independent prosecutors that are allocated to the Madlanga task team. They will be charged with ensuring that independent prosecutorial decision. The other aspect, of course, the other spectrum of accountability is whether there's, any damages that anyone would have caused to an organization, and that's in the realm of civil action. We will go through all the information on hand, and if we realize if there's evidence pointing to any of the actions that we need to take in that regard, we will do so. And the another spectrum is that, are there any regulatory infractions that have been committed, or professional infractions? The Minister indicated that there are those who have already referred to the Legal Practice Council. So all this will be looked at. But another important part is that there's complaints that continue to come in, and they are referred to the IDAC judge. So you can see that the accountability mechanism is really going to kick in, and going to kick in full swing. I know that I mentioned the 6 months turnaround. Please don't understand that we're going to wait for 6 months before you see changes. Every month we've got a project plan with deliverables, and we're going to monitor it so closely that every month there should be improvement that you can see as the public, and of course as the organization. Sipo, you in the review of the cases, you asked whether there's I think you said specifically, is there a law firm? The review is going to have a measure of independence. Right? While that process will include IDAC members, in the sense that they will need to come and present to the review team, but there will be a measure of independence where NPA, I have requested the Deputy National Director of Public Prosecution responsible for prosecutions to assist in this regard. The NDPP is responsible to do that, but of course there's processes in place to ensure that, that it is done independently. Yes, indeed, the Section 38 that the Minister refers to is a section in the NPA Act which enables us to insource capacity from legal practitioners, sound legal practitioners that will assist us in this regard. And we will invoke that process where we get independent assistance. So in terms of Griselda, you mentioned that there's been evidence that Johnson has launched an attack against Masemola and Khumalo and so on. You would know that there's a review process. We've concluded the review of matters against General Khumalo, and we have announced that the matters have been withdrawn, albeit provisional. And I know that most of the members of the public are zooming in on the word provisional, but the cases have been withdrawn. The provisional part is really to ensure that where there's still matters that are outstanding, we ensure that we clean them up in terms of the legal process, and we will revert to the public in terms of how we have concluded those and indicate. I can confirm that General Masemola's matter is included within the scope of the matters that are under review. The issues of intimidation, I mean, those are matters that we are awake to. As we met with the staff, we were quite clear. And of course, the employee support programs will also be there. But we are clear around matters of protection, matters of security. We believe that the accountability program that we've kicked in, that have seen some of the people leave, being suspended and so on, will go a long way in really in ensuring that everyone will see that if there's any undue intimidation of staff, we would like to know that. There will be a reporting channel, and we'll be able to deal with those. Right. How is Andrea going to be held accountable? I think I mentioned that. I think that was from Mmamoloko. How did you not see the cracks in 18 months? The minister has responded to that. And as part of this reset program, we are going to ensure that we strengthen the monitoring mechanism. Right? I mean, you are able to read for yourselves the NPA Act, where it mentions that IDAC operates under the direction and control of the National Directorate of Public Prosecution. We have to unpack on what that means to IDAC. And as part of this process, the monitoring mechanism from NDPP has to be clear in a manner that respects the segregation of duties, ensuring that IDAC is able to run. The head of IDAC is able to do his or her job. But we have to make sure, as I always refer back to the Special Investigating Unit. We've had the opportunity there to turn around the organization in about 3 or so years. And I'm talking 2017, 18, 19. And since then, we've been able to have systems in place. We've been able to have processes defined. This is a 6 months turnaround process because, of course, the magnitude of the work is not as huge as we have had to do at SIU. But the principles are the same. We have to define processes, people management framework, and systems that are required to support IDAC. So by so doing, and we are also awake in terms of reputational risk management that we need to put in place. the communication mechanism that we need to also put in place. Tate Kganyago here and his team, they also from the center, from NPA, support all the divisions, including IDAC. They are on call to ensure that the communication and stakeholder management, including reputational management framework, is in place. We would like to ensure that the reputation of IDAC returns such that the public confidence is retained and maintained. Thank you, Minister.
Thank you very much. I think we're going to take another round here and also check online whether there are any questions. And then we go to a close. Please, let's not repeat the questions that have already been asked, because they have given you clear answers. And let's take it from there. Ferial?
Thank you very much. Ferial. The leading editor and commentator, Matata Tsedu, he raised the concern of ethnic factionalism that has come to the fore, in that it looked like a group of Indian staffers were attacking or targeting a group of African staffers. Is this something that you're concerned about as well, and will it form part of the review? And then might you consider looking into withholding the pension of the former head of the IDAC pending the investigation that's happening now? And then for the NDPP, if I may ask, there were 30 arrests made in immediately flowing from the work of the Madlanga Commission. Are any of these also under investigation and re-looking, or does it fall under your answer to Griselda? Thank you.
Thank you. Any other? No.
Thanks. Maybe before I proceed, I just want to confirm if the minister will be doing one-on-one after this. If not, we can fire. Okay, you're not going to be. So allow me to fire all these questions.
I have to run for another engagement.
No problem, Minister. But I think the question on whether there has been any case, which I may not be aware, that perhaps has been adjudicated and finalized by the court was not responded to, and how you're going to mitigate that audit you are about to embark on. Minister, in regard to the interactions you have had with the former head of IDAC, along with the National Director of Public Prosecution, will you be approaching the Madlanga Commission, perhaps to assist them? Is that information that you believe can help them as they continue with their work? Advocate Mothibi, would you be able to say here that Advocate Johnson is being investigated, or you're considering investigating her? And last questions. You do mention, Minister, that the Senate for Policy and Legislative Review, you know that there have been calls to essentially make IDAC a fully independent organization. People who often quote the Glenister 2 case by the Constitutional Court. People like Paul Hoffman, who has said that as early as 2023-24, that IDAC is going to fail, it will not be effective. It seems he was prophetic, if anything is that's going on is anything to go by. Therefore, do you support calls for an effective crime-fighting unit that will be a Chapter 9 institution? Lastly, just how, as the political head, do you assure South Africans that this mess that is happening within this important body will never repeat itself?
Thank you. Anything online?
Yes, Chairperson. I will read all the questions, Chairperson, for the record. I will start with Ntsikelelo Toyo from Cape Times. In light of the admission by former IDAC head that the police commissioner, Fani Masemola, was wrongly charged alongside Vusi Musi, Ket Matala, and 15 others in the 360 million rand Medicare 24 tender case. Will the NPA drop these charges considering similarly the NPA withdrew charges against Lieutenant General Dumisani Kumalo following revelations at the commission. The NDPP has also spoken about a period of 6 months to turn IDAC around. Will this process be led by a new head for IDAC? If so, has the process to appoint started? Questions from Nazi from Lodiam San. It is clear that the minister is being reactive considering IDAC to what has been brought to the public space via the Matanga Commission. The fact that this rot was going on in IDAC, does it not mean the minister as the political head failed to ensure that proper monitoring was done, even at the NDPP? The last questions are from Nokolo Sibia, News 24. People have been charged with crime without justification. Where do NDPPs and arguably other higher offices such as the NDPP and the ministry take responsibility? And Public Interest SA chairperson lodged formal complaints and pushed for the suspension and legal scrutiny of Advocate Andrea Johnson following testimonies at the Madanga Commission. Does Advocate Mothibi believe Johnson is fit and proper to be an advocate? Lastly, is the SIU not being weakened because people keep getting seconded from there, starting from Advocate Mothibi? That's all for now, Chairman.
Yeah, the one thing I know is Advocate Mothibi is not seconded. Director of Prosecution. Then even with the other questions Mmamoloko raised, they were answered, some of them. Voyo? Voyo is, I think you'll be the last one, and then we close.
Can I ask if the NDPP, like the minister, won't be available afterwards?
Will you be available after for one-on-one?
I'll be available.
He will be.
Oh, okay, then so it takes care of some of the questions I wanted to ask directly. I'll ask them afterwards. But Minister, I mean, you may have heard the testimony of Ms. Ramsamy today, and on the back of what you said earlier, that a couple of people did approach you, but there was no evidence. Don't you then, perhaps with the benefit of hindsight, even wouldn't you say that perhaps you may have failed people such who couldn't approach either Ms. Johnson or Advocate Abatoi, who Ms. Mansame said the commission today was that Ms. Johnson was Advocate Abatoi's blue-eyed girl, so they couldn't really raise issues with them. Won't you perhaps take responsibility on your part of for having failed people like her who may have wanted to blow the whistle but felt that it was all pointless?
Okay. Oh, I wanted to close. Okay.
Thank you so much, Professor. I'm sorry, I just want to jump on that question because I was going to park it, but now that he's asked it, Minister, you speak about how you consult, from Eyewitness News. You speak about how you consulted with Andrea Johnson herself when these complaints came to you. What steps and measures did you take beyond asking the person that is being complained about? Because what we're hearing is employees in IDAC had a problem with the systems and the person at the top. And what the minister did was ask the person who's being complained about, or at least the person who would have oversight over those processes. And once she allayed your fears and your concerns, you left it there. So what did you do beyond asking the person who the buck would stop with? Thank you.
Thank you. That was the last person. Can we respond?
Right, thank you very much. Ndate Moloto, the question that you had asked before, cases that have been decided, what's going to happen to those cases decided by the courts? As you would know, that those matters would have been completely investigated, and prosecuted before our courts. So if the courts have decided, then they will have to be dealt with in accordance with the Criminal Procedure Act. If it's been decided or the verdict is guilty and the sentence is imposed, there are legal processes that need to be followed, right? So where the courts have decided, will probably not, this review process would probably not go that route, except that the review may pick those cases where there wasn't sufficient effort on the part of the prosecution, and then we'll decide if there are those cases whether action needs to be taken in this regard. And I'm probably just stating the probability here that and I can quote the likes of Omotoso case, right, where the NPA was not happy about how the case was decided. We decided to take the case on appeal. If there are similar cases, and I'm just saying, if there are similar cases here, in terms of how the cases were decided, we'll take it. The review team will advise. You're saying, can I say here whether Advocate Johnson is being investigated? She has said so herself. So I can confirm, and I think it's the investigation officer McLean testified at the Madlanga Commission that there is a case that he is investigating. He came to NPA to get a prosecutor allocated to guide the investigation, right? And that investigation looks at the allegations which were made against Advocate Johnson. That's the one, at least, that I can say here. It's been publicly stated. So we will guide that investigation in the normal run. In the normal run of the process, the investigation will be guided. When the docket is ready for prosecutorial decision, the investigating officer will submit it in the normal process. In the light of the admission that the case relating to Mmamoloko, it keeps coming up, but this matter is really going to be subjected to a review. I cannot now stand here and preempt what's going to come out of the review. There is a legal process. There's a legal process and the governance process around that legal process to ensure that the review is done and done properly. Right, I think, well, there's from News 24, people have been wrongly charged and so on. Look, I can only say those who believe that they've been sort of wrongly charged will probably need to know of those, and will subject those matters to the review as we should. So I need to just indicate as well, and I mean we've stated it before, that the review of cases, it's a review that is allowed when representations are made to the NDPP or to the DPP DPP being the Director of Public Prosecutions in the divisions, in the processes, they go through a assessment, they go through a review process, and a decision is made ultimately whether the representations are sustained or not. It's a process that is documented in the Criminal Procedure Act. So it's not an undue process. But with regard to, as we go on the investigation side, and this is what I've said, the experience we've had with SIU, you need to put together the measures that would assist and ensure that there's regular reviews of investigations and ensure that there are checks and balances and that investigations are conducted appropriately. We are going to ensure that there are those measures that are put in place going forward and strengthen accountability around those measures. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Let me start with the issue of withholding pension. Our labor laws do not allow, when a person resigns or retires without any due cause, you withhold the pension. So currently there's no legal basis that would allow me to sign and say that Advocate Johnson should not receive her pensions. I thought I should clarify that. The issue of what is now coming up and looking as Indian versus blacks fight. It's unfortunate in 32 years of our democracy and when we're celebrating 30 years that we've got to deal with issues in this context of race. It does look that way, and I hope it was not how it was intended. But as I gave the demographics of IDAC, we do not have, and I think people keep on confusing that we have majority is not factual in terms of both leadership and also in terms of the entire population of the organization. The issue about going forward to Madlanga, I don't think what I have is what would assist Madlanga. I think Madlanga will assist me more than anything as the minister in terms of oversight. And I'll come to the issue because I think everybody else seemed to be misunderstanding what I talked about. And I thought I explained what has been brought to my attention and what I had to deal with. So there's not been a whistleblower that comes and say, Minister, I am being victimized by IDAC. I don't have that. I've never had such a whistleblowing. I think I should highlight. When any complaint comes through, we would forward, before the IDAC judge, for example, would forward to Office of Accountability, Ethics and Accountability within NPA. So it would have been complaints about other prosecutors. You would have had us even announce their outcome of this. This is the complaint that landed on the minister. It went, and then it was processed. The complaint that landed on the minister's desk in relation to Advocate Johnson was particularly the appointment of the husband. That was dealt with by the Office of Accountability, Ethics and Accountability. A report was produced, and when we did the report, the media briefing 3 weeks ago with the IDAC judge, I think I gave a report to say, I have received the final report and we have submitted that report to the president. So, and in terms of the level where Advocate Johnson is the appointment of the president, and any matter in terms of suspension or charging or asking questions, it has to go to the president. So that's the difference. So in the structure of NPA, there are those that are appointed in terms of Public Service Act. It's a very complex one, and sometimes people confuse it. Public Service Act, and there are those that are appointed in terms of NPA Act. And in how they are dealt with, it's different in terms of the procedure. Number two, in terms of the powers of the minister as well, I think many of us as journalists, I do believe we're confusing them. The minister does not have oversight over IDAC on prosecutorial matters. So the prosecutorial performance of NPA is submitted by the NPA and DPP directly to Parliament. So where there's a complaint or I have a concern, I then utilize Section 33 of the NPA to request a report. I can't walk to NDPP and say, NDPP, brief me about this. It's not allowed. So I have to write formally and say to NDPP, in relation to this case, I'm requesting to you to account in terms of Section 38. For example, when we had a challenge with the Omotoso case, I wrote formally to the then NDPP to say, I'm seeing this case being lost in court. I'm requesting formally for you to report to me. So in the cases that relates, for example, to the Kuma law, and I didn't have to because NDPP immediately, when he saw what was happening in terms of his powers, he then briefed the minister that, Minister, I've seen this, I am taking action. So there was no need for me to interact there. So the issues that we were dealing with regards to Advocate Johnson, in terms of, it was the issue of the report of the ethics and accountability, as I said. The second one, it's the day we issued the statement jointly with NDPP. This was in terms of her appearance at the commission and at that time dealing. So none of the staff members of IDAC have written to me to say this is what the issues are. That I can confirm. I don't have it. We had, in terms of broader NPA staff members that have approached, and we have dealt with that and given them feedback. So we have mechanisms of dealing with that and all that. And I want to emphasize why it's important to protect the independence of this institution and come to the issue of whether this was set up to fail. The independence not of IDAC, it's of NPA. And that is operational and financial independent. In terms of the Constitution, NPA remains accountable to the minister. So it is one of those that is in the Constitution. If we want to change it, we'll have to change the Constitution. And maybe let me just say, in terms of global practice, across the globe, it's not the same that you would have independence the way we want to say it. There is a reason why the minister will have interaction in terms of ensuring, that's why even with the judiciary, while the judiciary will be independent, the Minister of Justice will have a role because they must ensure access to justice as a public rep, because neither of those people are actually elected by the people of South Africa and representing the voice of the people. So the Constitution is not a mistake in the manner that it puts the role of the Minister of Justice within. It limits the powers in terms of prosecutorial so that you don't find yourself interfering and involving yourself on court matters and prosecutorial matters. But you have the powers to ensure that there's functionality but accountability and ensuring that access to justice is actually recognized. So I thought that is important. Again, I don't support the issues of Chapter 9. We've passed that stage. If you look at the NACEC report that has been released, the President has accepted. The issue that we're talking about as the state is to ensure that, yes, we have a corruption-fighting organization in the country that has the necessary powers that are needed. And again, the question that goes to ask to say, do we have gaps in terms of accountability? When you look at the legislation, both in terms of NPA Act and in terms of the Constitution, there shouldn't be. So in terms of the procedures and also norms and standards and procedures of IDAC, for example, IDAC operations must be, or investigations must be done by investigation teams. And then the IDAC head plays a role in terms of oversight. But the NDPP as well have a responsibility of oversight over those mechanisms. So in terms of legislation, and that's what we are talking about, do you then, out of those analysis, recognize that there's still another oversight? And that's why the implementation of the IDAC oversight charge, we do believe it will close the gap. The issue is practical experience. And do you say that you can prevent any wrongdoing by an organization? I'll be lying if I say that. Because even in the society, you can't wake up and say, I'm going to stop all criminal activities to happen. Others would have stopped crime. You don't know that when I look at this person is going to become a criminal. Even when you raise a child, you don't know that this child is going to wake up and become a criminal. Similarly, organizations, when they recruit, they don't recruit people on the basis that this one is going to be rogue. People start very well in their careers. They're doing very well, build profile. And along the line, along the way, they go haywire. It's some of the cases that we see. So you can look at a career of a person and you say, okay, has this person, out of the 30 years that they've served, out of 15 years that they've served, out of 20 years, they've not faced any DC. They've not had to deal, and they might have even reported to various individuals. But secondly, let's remember that this organization, in its 18 months, has had 2 heads. So that's another issue, laying the foundation in that area and the other one coming through. But not only that, it's those things that we've got to look at, and that's why we are saying we are refixing, we are building this organization that we are, the 18-month-old baby. Do I have to take responsibility? I would be glad if I had done something wrong, but I don't think so. I think in terms of my responsibility and duties, I've done what is expected of me in terms of the Constitution, the laws, and all prescripts of this country, to ensure that those that are appointed are actually accountable, but also those that are. That's why conversations have been held. Now, if anyone understands governance and also HR processes, you understand. You don't wake up and say, because there's an allegation, I fire you. You'll find yourself in CCMA and labor court every day. You don't. You've got to be able to do a process. But similarly, even if a person has done something wrong, you might find that this is wrong. There's a procedure that you've got to follow in terms of law. So now you can't, otherwise you'll be calling me a rogue minister. Because I would wake up and say there's an allegation against this prosecutor fire. The reason the act is in the manner that it is, that if you have prosecutors, NDPP, DNDPP's head, for you to fire them, it becomes so difficult, is to protect these institutions because of the nature, because they're expected to operate without fear or favor, not at the will of the minister. So they must be able to stand firm even against a minister or a political head. And because the process that needs to be followed when they do something, it's the one you would have seen with many of them, where they go for an inquiry, account, and therefore if they have to be dismissed or reinstated, it's that way. I think the forebears who saw this was quite visionary to protect the integrity. Because otherwise you'll wake up tomorrow with somebody who just I have a friend who's been charged, I call NDPP, NDPP go and remove that person, that charge. And if NDPP doesn't agree, then I say you are fired. So the systems and the laws that we have are quite matured enough, are quite good enough for us to be able to rebuild what we have. As I said, IDAC is an 18-month-old baby. Do you say a 2-year-old baby, when they start not conducting themselves, you throw them out? No, because they learn out of the process. I was saying to Minister of Finance, we had a meeting with him, I said, when you have a child and the parents have been rogue, you don't throw away the child, you actually take the child to foster care and get the child new parents. That's what you do. So that the child can grow. You don't stagnate the growth of the child and start killing the child. So we have an organization here with huge potential, which I do believe that has a role to play in our society, especially because we do not, as a country, have any institution that is focused on dealing with corruption. Now, do we say because the same thing I would ask, there's been other organizations that have been found wanting. Why haven't we called for their closure? Why particularly must be IDAC that is closed? Because people who have appeared there, it's not only IDAC. Many have appeared, other organizations have been there. But South Africans have not called for them to be closed because they understand that they have a role to play, similarly as IDAC has a role to play. Now, how do we assure that something like this will not happen? I think the similar way we've been able to look at the Zondo investigations and say we have to rebuild our country and not have state capture again, is what we have to do. The Madlanga Commission was established by this government, by the president, is supported by this government and the executive, precisely because it was warranted for it to do this work that it's doing. And one of the areas that has been improved was that in the regulations and in the work that the president has been doing, was to say we're not going to wait until the commission concludes its work. We're going to say in between, let's see action, let's see the implementation of the commission. This is the work that is done by this government and the executive, which I'm part of, and actually, as a portfolio supporting the commission. Now, do you want us to jump before even the Madlanga Commission? We can't undermine the commission that we have set, especially myself, as Minister of Justice and Constitutional Development. So I can't run commentary between what the Madlanga Commission is doing. While witnesses are there, I give feedback. It's not appropriate. So I'm not going to comment about the witnesses and what they are saying. But also, just to help and explain, when a witness is going through to Madlanga Commission, the process, and I think the spokesperson has alluded to this, they have a mechanism to also ensure that the witness is protected. So if the witness needs protection, they will be, as the evidence leaders and the commission, will be able to highlight to say this witness will need protection. So if as the portfolio, both myself as NPA and DPP here receive that recommendation from Madlanga Commission, we'll definitely do that. But we don't want to interfere and start interacting with the witness while she's testifying and then start asking, do you need, will be subject of that because it's interference with the commission. So you don't engage the witness while they are there. You don't respond to them while they're testifying. And that's why you could hear on the statement we said, we want to urge all our employees that are appearing have been asked to come and assist, therefore to do that. If I am called by the commission, I'll go and assist. I don't have a problem. I don't think I have anything to hide. We'll be willing to do that, but where I'm sitting as the executive authority, it's the same thing. You don't want a process whereby your employees tomorrow can't interact with you because they think that you are going to go public about your interactions with them. Those conversations between myself and NDPP must be protected in terms of confidentiality. But if summoned by the commission, I will go and testify. But I can't, as a minister, it will be unethical, as a minister, to take initiative to go and disclose what is confidential conversations between me and the NDPP. Similarly, conversation between me and the president as my boss are confidential. You don't go out and say, this is what we discussed. That's why we communicate the outcome of whatever conversations we've had. So I thought those are the issues that I thought I should clarify. We will work hard to ensure that we rebuild, not only rebuild IDAC, but I do think in my capacity as JCPS co-chairperson, we have work that we have started to rebuild our justice system and rebuild confidence. And that's why you can see the swiftness. We've supported the colleagues who are doing the work. The task team between the National Commissioner and NDPP is supported by us as the executive to say they must do their work without any interference from us and ensure that we implement the reports. And what we are doing is that where we've seen the gaps, we're not going to wait, especially on policy and on operational issues that we can fix and avoid a disaster later that we see. We are addressing them now, and we are learning out of the process, and the justice system, we do believe that it will start being able to do. We've seen quite a lot of work recently in terms of whether we deal with organized crime, whether we deal with illicit activities, and I must remind South Africans that the terms of reference of that commission did indicate that investigation must be subs anyone within the justice system. So we were not naive to say there could be possibility of what comes through that we don't know. Neither of us, because it takes the people who are working together for one of them to blow the whistle. When they don't, what is done in those corners is not known. So it's only when you get these testimonies that you are able to know what has happened. And you can't wake up as a minister and start forensic investigation on your prosecutors. That as well will be rogue. Because what are you looking for? NDPP can correctly say, no, minister, what are you looking for? Actually, I could be accused of defeating the hands of justice. Because if I do a forensic investigation and get into the cases, it means I have potential of stopping them. And tomorrow when they are leaked, how do I protect myself and say it's not me? I would not have. I have consciously, as a minister, taken the initiative, and all of them will tell you that I will not interfere in the work of the NPA or any investigating institution, either it's ISIU or anyone within my portfolio, because we want to rebuild the confidence in the public that there's no political interference in these institutions, but when there are rogue elements, we will definitely deal with them decisively. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister, and thank you to the NDPP. For us, I think the message is very clear, and the one thing that I can say is, it has been said many times, we'll repeat it, we are not going to do commentary on the Madlanga Commission on a day-to-day. It is public, everybody can write about what they need to write about, but please don't ask us to comment on a blow-by-blow basis, because we are not going to do that. Ladies and gentlemen, we've come to the end of... Whether Andrea Johnson was fit to be...
Right, if I recall, that question was pointed at me. You know, when there is a view, any profession have got its own code of conduct. I'm an advocate myself, and if there's any view that you are not fit for purpose, I'm not the one to pronounce that. And that is why the Legal Practice Council is there. And there are those who have expressed their views and have made referrals to the Legal Practice Council. Let's allow that process to unfold. And the legal process, LPC, is the one authority that is mandated to pronounce on whether, as an advocate, you are fit and proper to practice as an advocate. Thank you.
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we are coming to the end of the session, and thank you very much for coming. And we will see you. I think you're seeing them tomorrow, Palesa? Yes, thank you. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen.